If you're trying to work 8 hours a day as a knowledge worker or entrepreneur, you're killing your focus and sabotaging your results. And there is a much better way to work, and it'll make you way more productive in half the time. Hi, my name is Mark Queppet, and I'm head coach over at Frontline Man, and I've been helping guys for over a decade on how to optimize their habits and reach their goals without relying on white-knuckle willpower. What I want to tackle today is this pattern of working that I've seen constantly when I work with guys who are knowledge workers, like, they're in IT or they're programmers or, sometimes accountants or, and almost all entrepreneurs. Okay. And what they have is this expectation of a 40-hour work week minimum. Often it's higher. It's like, 50 or 60 hours. And they think that this is what they need to be doing. But the thing you got to understand is that this 40-hour work week, it was not designed for knowledge workers. All right. It was designed for factory workers, people pulling a lever, making widgets. And no shade on anyone who does that kind of work. It's important work, but it's a different kind of work. All right. When you're working with your head, when you're making decisions, when you're having to, crunch a lot of variables in your mind, it's a very different thing than, pulling a lever or doing something that doesn't take so much focus. When guys do this, they ultimately end up wasting a huge amount of their potential, because it starts to scatter their focus. It, wastes hours, it leads to very shallow work, and it leads to constant fatigue. And overall, your productivity plummets. And so when you're a knowledge worker, what you got to understand is that productivity isn't about hours. It's about output. And that's really a function of intensity and energy, right? Like, how much can you focus while your energy is at its peak? If you can accept that, then what you got to understand is that you need a much more focused approach to how you do your knowledge work. And here's the pattern, or here's the setup that I've found most successful. I've been working for myself as a coach and content creator for a long time now, and I've experimented with a million different things. And I've found that all you need is really 2 90-minute deep work blocks per day. That's it. So like a total of 3 hours of deep work. And if you're hitting that, well, then you are going to be doing your best work. And when you get yourself really focused in, all right, and you get yourself doing like an hour and a half, crunching out that, top priority stuff, give yourself a little break, maybe go for a walk, take a power nap, something like that. Maybe take lunch, all right, and then you come back and you do another 90-minute block. All right, you will have gotten a ton done. An absolute massive amount done. And it doesn't mean this is all you can do. Like, typically for me, I work probably about 4 to 5 hours a day on average. So it's like I got the 3 hours of the deep focus, and then I've got 2 or so hours, 1 to 2 hours of meetings, emails, and that lighter stuff. And I've pitched this to a lot of guys. And what I've found is that at first they have a huge amount of resistance to it. They don't want to do it. They're afraid. They're like, there's no way I could get everything done that I need to do. But then when they actually implement it, all of a sudden they realize they're getting either the exact same amount done or more in a fraction of the time and energy. Because like I was saying, it's really just about how much output can you produce. And when you optimize to create a lot of output in a short period of time like this, then you start to see incredible results. And so this kind of structuring, this kind of strategic approach to stuff is exactly what we help guys build inside of Frontline Man. So if you want a custom deep work solution that really works for you and is dialed in to exactly your needs, well, then I suggest that you book a strategy call with us by clicking the link in the description. Let's talk a little bit about the problems that you might run into as you try to move into this sort of approach. One of the things is that you don't really have a strategy for how you approach your workday. And the first place is to look at your timing, because everybody's got a different point of mental peak in the day. For me, it's probably around 9 to 9:30 through 1 to 2 o'clock. Usually about 1 o'clock is when I start to fall off. So that's my sweet spot. And I try to almost never book calls or anything like that during that period, because that's my time to do this deep work. For other people, it's different. Some people, they can wake up and they can go right to work. In some ways I'm envious of those kinds of people, but for me, my brain's just not turned on. I'll just sit there staring at the keyboard and just like nothing's coming out usefully. So, some people, they can do it right when they wake up. Other people, they're legitimate night owls, and their deep work is going to happen much later in the day, maybe even before bedtime. I haven't met too many people whose peak work period is in the afternoon, but I assume some of these people exist somewhere. Sometimes even the way that you eat and stuff can affect this, like when you take your meals and all that kind of thing. But so you're going to have to experiment with it. But generally people like, that first part of the day for the majority of people is where they're going to find this period. And so in that time period, it's just, all right, I'm going to set a timer and I'm going to block things out. And that's all you got to do. Just get your things done. And obviously you need to know what you're getting done in that time period. And I'll do another video here soon about how I actually do all the planning and things like that. But if you can get that deep chunk in, you're going to be good. Guys are going to have some resistance to this, right? And probably one of the biggest objections is that I've just got way too much on my plate. There's no way that I could cut my workday down to just 4 or 5 hours. I want to offer you a reframe here. Right? You don't need more time. You just need to basically stop wasting your best energy on low impact work. When guys give themselves 8 to 10 hours to do work, it makes it so that they don't have to choose what is most important. Right? They don't have to prioritize. And so they just load their to-do list up because they don't need to make decisions about it. They're just like, oh, I'll just do it all. When they start trying to do it all, eventually their focus starts to slip. It starts to wane. And what happens? Well, they just start doing lower quality work. They move much slower, all that kind of stuff. Right? And then eventually the fatigue builds up. They're, start to feel a little burned out. And over time, it just leads to a much lower level of efficiency overall. So, give it a shot. My biggest recommendation is try it for a week, see what happens. And the other piece that some guys will run into is that I can't focus for 90 minutes straight. Some guys, they struggle with this. I know when I first started working for myself, I could barely focus for 45 minutes straight, right? Half an hour was a stretch for me. And so here's what you can do if you're not quite ready to do the 90-minute chunk. Use the Pomodoro technique, all right? That's where you're working 25 minutes, and then you take a 5-minute break, okay? At least a 5-minute break. And so the way that I would recommend structuring it, instead of a 90-minute chunk, you do 3 25-minute chunks with a 5-minute break. And you do 2 of those, like 2 clusters of 3. Or heck, you could even do 3 clusters of 2, okay? With a larger break between the clusters, all right? And so when you bring it down to 25 minutes, that's something that most people can do, all right? So you can start there and just be like, all right, I got to get 6 25-minute chunks done per day. I did that for a long time until, 90 minutes became easy. You'll know when it's time to shift out of that, when 25 minutes feels like it's actually getting in the way. It's like, oh, well, I'm kind of in the groove now. I want to keep going. Just to summarize, at max, 3 hours focused work per day. Ideally broken down into 2 90-minute chunks. I think that's probably best for most people. Even if you can do 3 hours, which I can do 4 hours straight, but I get a lot more done when I have a little break in there. And then an additional 1 to 2 hours of light work. For me, that might be planning my next day. It might be, responding to messages, guys on my team, guys in my community, that kind of stuff. And then also meetings and doing coaching calls and that kind of thing. And so this is going to get you either the same or better results in most cases if you are a knowledge worker. If you're doing something else, maybe not. And here's another thing is if you can't get everything you need done in that kind of time period, I believe you're probably overloading yourself. I think that you lack focus and you're trying to do too much by yourself, and you need to scale things back, right? You need to really dial things in because you're trying to do more than what you can really do well, right? And you're cruising for burnout or at least just chronic underperformance. When you bring your day down like this, then that frees you up the rest of your day for real recovery, to actually do things, spend time with your family, have fun, have things to look forward to. And it creates a really nice lifestyle where you're not sacrificing performance and you get to live a life that you like, right? And this does a ton for reducing your desire to escape and life satisfaction, all this kind of stuff. If you're done grinding after that 8-hour plus day and you want to build a system that actually respects your energy, gets your results, and all that good stuff, then I would love for you to book a call with us, because inside Frontline Man, we're going to help you build your peak performance schedule and everything else that you need, all the internal stuff, all the habit stuff, everything that you need to be your best self And we do that for you, right? That's what our whole system at Frontline Man is designed for. So, we'll break you down your whole situation and tell you how we can help you unleash your apex potential. So that's all I have for you guys today. See you guys on the front lines. Booyah.